She was born into a world of music and prayer, not war. On the first day of January 1914 in Moscow, as Europe stood unknowingly on the edge of catastrophe, a child named Noor Inayat Khan entered the world. Her name meant light of womanhood. It was not a name meant for shadows, secrecy, or death cells. It was a name meant for poetry. Her father, Inayat Khan, was a Sufi mystic, a musician, and a spiritual teacher who believed that harmony was the highest truth. Her mother, Ora Ray Baker, was an American who had followed love, faith, and music across continents. Noor grew up between cultures, between worlds, raised on the idea that violence was a failure of the soul. Her childhood was nomadic and gentle. Moscow, London, Paris. The family finally settled in a quiet house in Suez, just outside Paris, where music drifted through the halls and silence was treated with reverence. Noor learned the veena and the piano. She wrote poetry. She read fairy tales and then began writing her own. Shyness wrapped around her like a second skin. She avoided conflict. She hated cruelty. Those who knew her described her as dreamy, soft-spoken, almost fragile. Nothing about her suggested a future as one of the most hunted people in Nazi-occupied Europe. Then her father died in 1927. At just 13 years old, Noor became something she never expected to be, the emotional center of her family. As the eldest child, she helped raise her younger siblings, shouldering responsibility quietly, without complaint. The dreamer became a caretaker. Still, her world remained rooted in art and peace. She studied child psychology at the Sorbonne. She wrote children's stories inspired by Buddhist and Sufi teachings. In 1939, she published 20 Jataka tales, stories of compassion and moral courage. And then Europe collapsed. When German troops marched into France in 1940, the ideals Noor had been raised on shattered against reality. Paris fell. Jewish families disappeared. Friends vanished overnight. Peace no longer protected anyone. The Khan family fled to England. It was there, in a country under siege, that Noor made a choice that contradicted everything she had been taught and fulfilled it at the same time. She chose to fight, not because she believed in violence, but because she believed in freedom. She joined the Women's Auxiliary Air Force first, training as a radio operator. Radios were not romantic tools of war. They were lifelines and death sentences. A radio operator in occupied territory lasted on average 6 weeks before being captured. The Germans used direction-finding vans. Transmissions meant risk. Every message could be your last. When the Special Operations Executive came looking for female wireless operators fluent in French, Noor volunteered. Almost everyone objected. Her instructors called her unsuitable, too gentle, too nervous, too imaginative. She struggled with weapons training. She hesitated under pressure. One evaluation described her as not overburdened with brains. Another warned she might break under strain. But there was something they could not teach and could not measure. She had an unbreakable moral core. Against better judgment, SOE accepted her. In June 1943, Noor Inayat Khan was flown into occupied France under the code name Madeline. She became the first female wireless operator sent into Paris. Within weeks, the entire resistance network she was assigned to was destroyed. Arrests, torture, executions. She was ordered back to London. She refused. Someone had to stay on the air. Someone had to keep Paris connected to the outside world. Someone had to send messages knowing every transmission brought the Gestapo closer. So she stayed. For 3 months, Noor operated alone. She moved constantly, carrying her heavy radio set from attic to cellar, from safe house to abandoned apartment. She changed appearance, routes, habits. She transmitted under curfew, often from rooftops, knowing German detection units were sweeping the city. Every message she sent kept resistance cells alive. Every message shortened her own life. Eventually, she was betrayed. The exact details remain blurred by fear and regret, but in October 1943, the Gestapo came for her. Noor fought. She tried to escape through a window. She was beaten, arrested, and identified. What followed was not interrogation. It was systematic destruction. She was taken to Gestapo headquarters on Avenue Foch, where prisoners were broken professionally. Noor gave them nothing. Not names, not codes, not locations. They labeled her highly dangerous. She was transferred to Germany, classified as Nacht und Nebel, night and fog, prisoners meant to disappear without trace. For 10 months, Noor was kept in solitary confinement, shackled, beaten, starved, repeatedly interrogated. She attempted escape twice. After the second attempt, she was deemed unmanageable. Still, she did not speak. Guards later testified that she was defiant to the end, that she sang quietly to herself, that even when stripped of dignity, she refused to surrender her identity. In September 1944, as Allied forces closed in, the SS decided to erase her. She was transported to Dachau concentration camp. At dawn on September 13, 1944, Noor Inayat Khan was taken to an execution yard. She was beaten one final time. Witnesses said she was barely conscious, but when the moment came, she gathered herself. Her final word was not a plea. It was liberté, freedom. She was shot in the back of the head, and her body was cremated, her ashes scattered, her existence meant to vanish like smoke. For years, she almost did. After the war, her story surfaced slowly, files declassified, testimonies uncovered. A quiet woman who had never fired a gun was recognized as one of the bravest agents Britain ever sent into occupied Europe. She was posthumously awarded the George Cross, France's Croix de Guerre, and honored as a war heroine. But medals were never the point. Noor Inayat Khan did not win the war. She did not lead armies. She did not live to see victory. What she did was rarer. She proved that courage does not require hardness, that resistance can come from gentleness, that a woman raised on poetry and prayer could outlast torture and terror without betraying a single soul. She lived without applause, she died without witnesses, and history almost forgot her. Almost. This is Noor Inayat Khan, not the loudest hero, not the strongest, but one of the truest, a legend who stood alone in silence so others could speak freely.